Okay, thanks everyone for joining today. Welcome to GetApp's webinar, How to Create an Effective Marketing Technology Stack. We've done lots of research and got some insights for you guys today.
Cool, yeah, I see some folks have already posted in the chat, but before we jump in, was curious to know where folks are tuning in from. See some Miami Beach and South Africa folks and Estonia as well. So anyone else want to share where you're tuning in from? Well, Zach and I are in Austin, Texas, by the way, in case you didn't already realize that. So nice sunny day out there today. Cool. Well, we'll go ahead and jump in then. So before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. We are recording this session, so you'll have the video afterward. You can use the Q&A function in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen, as Grace mentioned, to submit any questions that you have for Zach or me at the end. So yeah, again, the video will be available, and then we'll also share an email recap at the end, so you'll have it as well.
Okay, and again, my name is Zach Capers. I'm Senior Analyst at GetApp, where I cover security and emerging tech trends.
And I'm Amanda Kennedy. I'm a senior writer for GetApp, sharing technology trends about small businesses and startups. And as you can see, we're both from GetApp, which is kind of like the TripAdvisor for software buying and technology. So we've got a lot of great reviews and insights on our site to check out. And with that being said, we do not have expertise in building a startup, disclaimer, but we do have expertise in research and insights and analysis. So we are super excited to share some of those with you all today. And to make this impactful, we asked your chapter directors about this community's most pressing technical challenges. And so we found out that they are building an effective online presence, and choosing the right software that solves the identified problem. So that's why today we are focusing on how to use your marketing technology effectively. We ran a custom survey to share with y'all today so that we could share some of those trends with you. So we talked to over 200 startup leaders about their marketing tech stacks, and we learned the types of software they find most effective, what their biggest challenges are with that technology, and steps that they've taken to overcome those challenges. Interesting insight we found was that less than a third of startups who already have a MarTech stack said that it fully meets their goals. So there's a problem there. So that's why today we wanted to talk to y'all about some tips for how to improve that. So as Grace mentioned today we're going to cover what is a marketing tech stack, what tools do startups find most effective. We'll also share the top benefits and challenges of marketing tech in case any of those resonate with y'all, and finding solutions. So how are startups actually solving these tech challenges? And then finally, at the end, we'll also take some questions. And in addition to the quantitative research that we did with our survey, we also really like qualitative research. So we did want to talk to an actual startup founder so that we could get some personal insights. So we did talk to Saman Mariar, who is a Startup Grind member. Not sure if he's in the audience today, but he is the co-founder and CEO of Chatterfox, which is an online language coaching program. So we'll have some tips and tricks from him scattered throughout to share with y'all today. And with that, what is a marketing tech stack, Zach?
Oh, funny you should ask, Amanda. Marketing tech stack. This is a collection of interrelated technologies that marketers use to optimize their marketing efforts and campaigns. It sounds simple enough, and at one time, maybe it was fairly simple, relatively simple. About 10 years ago, there were only about 150 options for you to choose from. But flash forward a decade, and we're looking at 8,000, maybe closing in on 10,000 today in 2021. So we've noticed the same thing on GetApp's catalog pages, where the number of marketing tools has really grown rapidly, especially in the last few years. So if you're trying to develop a tech stack for marketing, where would you even begin when you have all these options? So for these reasons, we asked startup founders, not necessarily startup grind, what tools they find most effective out of a long list of tools. So before we get to the big reveal of the answer, the most effective tool, we wanted to get input from our audience here today and find out which of these choices you find most effective. And if you don't use these choices, just which one do you think would be most effective for your company? So you'll see down there in the chat these options, and just leave the emoji of your choice under the one that you think is most effective. And we'll get to the winner in just a moment. So we'll give y'all a moment to get over there and add some emojis. Hopefully this works. So far it's a tie. Okay. Give it another few seconds here. Okay. All right, so we're getting some coming in here. Okay, B and C, they do, they're both important here. Well, that's interesting. We're getting lots of social media marketing, and that did rank pretty well. Looks like employee advocacy is coming in last place, and in our study, it did come in last place. Something had to come in last. And that was it. That doesn't mean it's not effective, but compared to the other tools, apparently it's less effective. Social media marketing did well, but overall the #1 tool was A/B testing. This was found to be the most effective marketing technology, according to startups. A/B testing, if you don't know, it helps marketers to understand and optimize the customer experience. So A/B testing, basically, it's an experiment where you can test 2 different versions of the same thing to see which one performs better or converts better. Then there's another version called multivariate testing. This is a more complicated, more complex version of A/B testing where you're incorporating several different variables into multiple tests. There's a lot more analysis that needs to take place there. There's more static, so it's more complicated. And if you're going to do multivariate testing, you probably need a dedicated tool. A/B testing can be done without a tool, but if you're going to go as far as to do multivariate, it's best to get a dedicated tool for that. So A/B test, just to get your head around exactly how this works. We came up with an activity here we thought would be kind of fun. So let's take a look at GetApp's resources page. This is where Amanda and I post our articles and our research. And in fact, this one here, what is low-code, no-code software? This is one of Amanda's recent articles. It's great. You should check it out. So let's call this test A. You can see the search bar is right there in the middle of the screen. And let's look at another version. We'll call this test B, where you have the search bar at the top of the screen. So think about which one do you think you'd be more likely to interact with? Would you be more likely to interact with the search bar in the middle of the screen, or do you think you'd be more likely to search for reviews and software using the bar at the top? So over in the sidebar, again, let's get some votes on which you prefer, A or B, in our little makeshift A/B test here. So you can see Grace has added the options here in the chat. There we go. Top of screen, center of screen, okay. Okay, this is interesting. This is interesting because one of these is how it appears today on our website. And we may have to get engineering involved if something doesn't change here.
It's a close race so far.
Yeah. So I think, A/B tests, sometimes you can't really make much of a conclusion and you kind of have to try something different. And this might be the situation here because this is too close to call. Currently, center 100%. It's in my face. I can remember it. Okay, I can see that. So let's just say if we ended it here, search bar center of screen. Well, as you see on your screen here, this is how our website appears today with the search bar at the top. So maybe we do need to contact our engineering team and have a change made. But like I said, it's not clear. 8 to 9 isn't quite clear. So we might let this test run a little longer in reality. And in reality, you wouldn't know that you're taking an A/B test. Some of you would just get one version, some would get the other version, right? So we would be the ones getting the data and making that decision. So you don't want to just run an A/B test for fun. You do want it to be based on data, or maybe your journey maps, or like personas, or something like, or maybe bounce rates. You're looking for something to solve your hypothesis, right? But it is a fun thing to play with. So let's move on here. Thanks, y'all, for participating in that. We asked Saman about A/B testing, and he said that he uses A/B testing and found it very effective. He was telling us that he uses A/B testing on the sales funnel, and that found conversion rates were the same at higher price points. So they raised their prices. Why wouldn't you? So you can see a direct correlation there with revenue, and that kind of goes to support that this was the most effective tool for startups. So rounding out the top 5 results of our research here. So as we talked about, A/B multivariate testing was the clear winner when we weighted the scores and the responses. A close second, though, was web analytics, and these are kind of related. Web analytics, you're going to understand who's coming to your site, who's visiting, and then you can kind of optimize using A/B testing if you'd like. CRM came in number 3. Of course, this is the backbone of a lot of companies. Helps you keep track of your contacts and your leads. That's pretty invaluable for a lot of people. 4th was multi-touch attribution. This is kind of helping you with a breadcrumb trail of all the different touch points across your marketing campaign. So you're not just looking at the most recent conversion spot. You can kind of see what led up to it. Maybe someone read an article and then they came back and purchased something months later, and you can kind of figure out what led to all of your conversions there. Social media marketing, again, of course, in 2021 you can't go without it. Everybody uses it, and it's apparently quite effective. So if your company is not using any of these, companies that do use them find them very effective. So you might consider them, look into them, and see if it might benefit your business. So what do we have next, Amanda?
Thanks, Zach. So yeah, we're going to chat about the top benefits and challenges of marketing technology. But first, we have some more interactive fun. So another quick poll is, what MarTech tool benefit is most important to you? So again, these choices will pop up in the chat. We've got improved customer engagement, higher conversion rates, or more precise audience targeting. So if you can put the emoji of your choice on whichever one of those answers resonates the most with you, that would be awesome. All right, higher conversion rates, definitely super important. So good to see that. Also precise audience targeting, cool. Lots of votes for conversion rates. Definitely important. Cool. See one for improved customer engagement. All right.
Wow, conversion rate, really killing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's important. Definitely affects your bottom line. So interesting to see that. All right. Well, I guess we'll do the big reveal. This is what the startups that we spoke with said. So in order of most mentions, they actually said improved customer engagement most frequently. Whoops. More precise audience targeting, and then more effective campaigns. So these were the top 3 benefits mentioned by the startups we spoke to. So maybe, again, looks like some of these resonate with you, but just some interesting data that we pulled from our survey. So as you can see, we also talked to Saman about this to find out, get his thoughts on the matter. And he said that with them, their marketing tech stack really helped them optimize their sales funnel. So they were placing ads on several different platforms, whether it was Google or Facebook or Instagram, and they really wanted to see what converted and which one of those platforms converted the most for them, as well as any specific types of behavior that they saw from those different groups so they could get better at targeting. So definitely a benefit for one of those marketing tech stack tools, as you saw in our survey. All right, another poll. On the flip side of benefits, what's your biggest MarTech tool challenge? So another quick poll in that right-hand chat feature. First option is too many unused features, so you feel like you're not getting the maximum value from the tool. Next up, not enough customer data to use the tool effectively. Can be a problem if you're in your very early growth stage. And then next up is too many overlapping features among tools. So place your emoji on one of those options, if you will, please. Not enough customer data. All right. I can see that for sure. Something Saman also mentioned when we spoke with him. More votes for that. Also, unused features is a problem, totally. And too many overlapping features.
We're getting interesting results. Yeah. Okay.
Lots of customer data votes. All right. Well, according to the startups we spoke with, they mentioned these top 3 challenges: too many overlapping features, too many unused features, and overall complexity. So, of course, knowing that these are the challenges, we didn't want to leave it here. We want to talk about solutions to how you can solve for these challenges, if any of these resonate with you as well. So finding solutions. First up, we basically asked in our survey, how are you solving for these challenges? And here's what we found. People said they are creating detailed process documentation, improving cross-functional collaboration, providing vendor training sessions, and hiring new marketing staff. So we're going to dig into each of these individually. All right, first up, so startups are creating detailed process documentation. And one thing to keep in mind is that all of these tools probably come with a ton of bells and whistles, but you really want to focus on how these tools will help serve your purpose and really adapt them to your existing process. And so with that being said, definitely use whatever tool you're most comfortable with, whether that's Google Docs or you have Company Wiki or another platform that you use already for documentation. And then next up, you're going to want to have a super user QA the process doc. And what do we mean by a super user? Basically, this is the person who might have lobbied for the tool and identified the need for it, or it could just be someone on your staff who is maybe more technically savvy or someone who just gets really excited about software. So they can help you, in addition to QAing that process doc, they can also really help evangelize whatever this tool is amongst your other staff members, which is great. And then finally, you're going to want to think about developing an internal knowledge base. So if you do have a lot of process documentation, you're going to need to think about how you want to organize that, which is helpful for your existing employees, maybe 6 months from now, or it can also help for any new hires that you have come in, they can really get started a lot faster if everything's organized well in an internal knowledge base. Cool. Next up, startups are improving cross-functional collaboration. Your tool is going to be more effective if more of your departments are using it, basically. And the thing is, every department is probably going to be using this tool a little bit differently. So you definitely want to customize messaging for each department and be able to speak about the benefit for that specific team. So, for instance, your PR team may be using it to keep track of their pitches and journalists they spoke to, whereas maybe on your sales team, they want to keep track of any conversations and call notes where they left off in conversations. So definitely think about what each of those benefits is for each of the teams and then share that. And then also you want to get everyone on the same collaboration tool and formally track the software implementation like you would any other project. I think, sometimes we don't always think of ourselves. We think of ourselves last. And really you need to be thinking about this like any other project that your company would implement, and definitely hold all people accountable for those tasks and implementation. And then finally, you want to make super users your best friends. As we mentioned before, not only are they helpful for just testing out this new tool, but also just evangelizing and spreading the message amongst their teams across the business about how this tool can be helpful. All right, next up, startups are providing vendor training sessions. So this one is kind of a no-brainer, but something you might forget about. So wanted to remind you that all of these tools exist for whatever vendor that you choose in different forms or a different form or fashion. But basically, you'll want to find out what support your software provider is going to be offering you for this specific tool. So first up, we've got on-site trainings. So this is where maybe someone from the vendor company will come to your office in person. Maybe they can customize a training for a specific process or a specific question that your team has, which is always great. You'll also want to think about 24/7 tech support. So you might have coworkers in many different time zones, or if you're launching a brand new product, what if it glitches overnight? You're going to want to make sure that you have that 24/7 tech support in that case. And then you also want to look at webinars and videos, whether those are live or on demand. These can be great resources for you as you want to learn about new features about this tool and how you can be optimizing it to better serve your processes.
And the process docs that you talked about a moment ago, you can always ask if the vendor has process docs available that you can use or customize for your purposes. And really during the whole contract process for the new software, you might see if they can throw in some of this. It's an easy add-in that sometimes people overlook, but you can make that a part of your process when you're buying the software.
Absolutely. Great point. And this one was interesting. Startups are hiring new marketing staff. So we dug into this one a little bit deeper and what we think is happening here. So when you first start building your business, you probably have 3 or 5 people, maybe max, that are doing a bunch of different things, wearing a bunch of different hats. So all of those people are crucial to your success. They need to do a lot of different things. Basically, they need to come up with the creative ideas. They need to be technically savvy and then be aware of marketing best practices as well. However, as you start to grow and scale your business, you're most likely to have individual roles that you want to fill. So for instance, they might get a little bit more specialized. Rather than having this kind of full stack marketer, you might want to have focused specialized roles on things like acquisition, monetization, and content. And this is something Saman kind of discussed with us too, that as they grew, they needed different tools. Number 2, this point is important though. What you don't want to do is go out and go on a shopping spree, buy a bunch of marketing tools, and then hire people to run those tools. Because one thing to keep in mind is you're hiring these people because of their expertise. And so they're going to have a sense for what tools work the best through trial and error. Maybe they know the pros and cons of specific tools that they've used in the past. So you definitely want to rely on their expertise as you're shopping for these tools. And they'll want to be included in any of those conversations. We got a great tip from Saman on this note. So you don't necessarily need to think about hiring full-time staff either. So one thing that they found is that when they ran into some technical issues as they were implementing their software, they just pinpointed what those specific problems were, and then they went on Upwork and found freelancers who were able to help them solve those problems. So for a few $100, they were able to take care of the problems, move on. And so you definitely don't need to hire the overhead of a full-time salary necessarily. You can definitely look at freelance support as well. So that was a cool tip we wanted to share with y'all. All right, with that, I will turn it over to Zach.
Thanks. Okay, so those are some good solutions to some of the issues that people are finding. But we did find something else that a lot of organizations are overlooking and that can make a huge difference in the success of your marketing technology stack. We asked startups if they had a marketing technology plan in place when they adopted these tools. 59% said yes, and 41% said no. When we looked at the 41% more closely, we found that they were 4 times as likely to say that their marketing tools do not meet their business goals. So, I mean, it sounds simple enough, but 41% of startups aren't doing it, and it can make a huge difference in the success of your tool. So, how do you go about having a marketing technology plan? You probably have a marketing plan, but maybe you don't have a marketing technology plan, right? So, first, you're going to want to assemble your team, identify the capabilities that you need, set your timeline when you're going to roll this out, visualize and communicate, and extra bonus, review performance. So let's dig into this just a bit here. So first, you're going to assemble your team. This needs to be a cross-functional team, not just marketing folks. It needs to be anyone's team that's impacted or affected, people, end users as well. It needs to be a mix of volunteers and appointees if possible. Make sure if you appoint somebody that they're going to have the time to dedicate to this project for sure. And you want to formalize the roles a bit so that it's clear who's making decisions, who's driving the project, who needs to be informed. You can use a RACI or a DACI or whatever you find is best, most conducive for this for your team. And also it'd be helpful if you allot some time for market research before that first meeting, before the discovery meeting. That way everyone brings something to the table. So you're not starting from zero. Everyone has kind of their head around the marketing technology landscape a little bit and can kind of add to the conversation there. So let's move on to identify your capabilities. So you've got your team, and now you got to figure out what do you need, what tools do you need. So you're going to have to select according to what's going to support your digital marketing initiatives. Identify the core features that you're going to need, and consider how they will be integrated. Some of you might want an all-in-one platform that's kind of going to do a little bit of everything for you. And as you grow, maybe you start to get a little more detailed with the tools, or maybe you're at a point where you want to do best of breed software, and you're going to want the best of every type of marketing software that you're going to use. That you'll need to integrate them somehow. But regardless of whether you go all in one or best of breed, you're probably going to need to integrate with existing systems as well. So you need to consider all of this when you're choosing your tools according to the capabilities that you need for your campaigns. So that leads us to the data, though, how your data flows through all these tools. And we had a kind of a surprise answer earlier on not enough customer data to use the tool effectively. This makes a lot of sense in an era where third-party data, third-party cookies are preventing us from getting more customer data, and people are turning to other ways to get the data they need to run effective marketing campaigns, whether that's getting more first-party data or starting up a loyalty program so you can kind of pull in more information from your existing customer base. But think about how you're going to get the data that you need to run these tools. And not only thinking about collecting the data, you also need to consider how you're going to store it and protect it. So this isn't just for cybersecurity issues, which is a big concern, of course, and then nobody wants a data breach out there making headlines. But you also need to comply with emerging privacy laws, such as GDPR and especially the California Consumer Privacy Act. This might affect some of your organizations already, and even if it doesn't, likely you will be impacted by some of these similar privacy laws in the future. So just knowing where this data is and how to, protect it and protect yourself from violating any kind of future privacy laws is probably a good practice.
One thing too to think about is eventually you're probably going to want to switch to a different tool at some point. And so something you might want to ask your vendor is what happens to that data when you switch? Do you own it or do they own the data? That's an important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, and a lot of times they might charge fees just to export your data. So that's something to definitely get ahead of. That's a good point. Okay, so now you've got your team. You know what tools that you need and the data flows. You've got that all sorted out. So when are you going to launch these tools? So you need to develop a timeline. You can use your preferred methodology if that's a Gantt chart. If you prefer bar charts, you can use a PERT chart if you prefer like a flow chart. Additionally, you need to keep in mind any kind of big issues that are going to get in the way, or maybe this launch will get in the way of, such as a new product launch, new revenue streams that come online. You don't want to just launch a new tool in the middle of like the busiest season that you have necessarily. So of course, you want to schedule these rollouts based on your business priorities and also interdependence among tools. So like you don't want to launch tool A if it's going to be dependent on the data that you're getting from tool B. So launch these in a logical order, of course. And keep in mind that you're going to need some time to get it right. Don't expect success right away. It might take several months before you start to see some success from this. And in that same spirit, though, don't feel like you're going to have to be married to this tool if it's not working out. And we'll get to that in just a second, though. But first, a step that so many organizations skip, and this is visualizing and communicating your plan. So really, I mean, you want everyone who's impacted by this to know what's going on and how these tools are going to affect their workflows, even just a little bit, because small changes can make a huge impact. So use a format that works best for your team. If that's just a simple spreadsheet, if you're just launching a new tool and you're just trying to keep track of it and let everybody know what's happening, that's great. But a lot of people find a compelling infographic really helps. It helps let the broader team know what's going on and how it's going to affect their workflows. You might do one for each department. Like Amanda was saying, kind of target the audience with this. If you're doing a really complex multi-tool rollout, you might spring for some detailed roadmap software. This might make it easier just to see everything in one place, keep it all down on paper, so to speak. As you're rolling these out, set regular update meetings with stakeholders, just to kind of give an idea of whether you're hitting any roadblocks, if you need to make any changes to dates or whatever as you're going along, and be sure to cascade information to those who need it. It's better to over-communicate with your teams than it is to under-communicate, and you will find more success the more you communicate with your teams. Finally, it's never over. You always have to review performance. So are the tools, are you finding that they have overlapping or unused features, which we found in our research that was the biggest issues that people have? If so, you might need to consider doing a little more integrations or maybe consolidate a couple of tools. Maybe, it's got some redundant stuff going on. And then simply put, is it meeting your expectations or your business goals being met? And even beyond that, are the tools still relevant? Lots of organizations have marketing tools in place before COVID hit, had to pivot their business model suddenly, and maybe the tools you're using are no longer relevant to your current needs. So don't, like I said before, don't get necessarily married to a tool. Do give time to see if it's effective, but make changes if necessary. A lot of people just keep going with what they have, but definitely make changes as needed. And with that, that's about what we have for you today, but I do think Amanda has something else for you.
Yes, before we get to questions, did want to mention if any of you are in the market for new marketing technology or any other kinds of software, you're just curious about technology, definitely check out our website, getapp.com. So as you can see on this GIF on the screen, we do have a cool tool on our website called the App Finder. And basically you can plug in your price range, any specific features that you need. And basically this tool helps create a short list for you. So you can have a customized list that you can research further if you're interested in a new tool, specific types of technology. So definitely check us out if you haven't already. In addition to that, lots of resources like buyer's guides or even our articles that Zach mentioned that we write. So lots of tips and tricks on there for you to check out.
And with that, if we have any questions, we'd be happy to.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Cool. So we have a question from Andy who is wondering, are there tools that are specific for like very new startups where, it's like maybe 5 people and everyone is wearing a bunch of different hats? Is there an all-in-one tool that you could recommend? And to tap onto that, is there then suggestions you have as you grow different tools that you think are useful for a larger team?
It's a great question. And definitely, as Andy already mentioned, the all-in-one tool is something you probably want to look at if you are a smaller company. Saman, the startup owner we spoke to, had a great point that his team, when they were starting out, they thought they needed something custom and something built from scratch. But his point is that likely whatever you need already exists out there, and you can save a lot of money on your budget if you go with an already existing tool. And those all-in-one tools are probably going to be a little bit more budget friendly than if you decide to pick a bunch of different specialized tools. So you might save those for as your company grows. And as far as specific tools, another plug for our website, we actually have a lot of great, we have short lists on our website of essentially what are considered category leaders. So you can find on there what people have reviewed as kind of their favorite tools, and even they specifically mention which ones might be better for smaller companies. So definitely check that out if you haven't already for some of those specific tools.
And those same pages also show integration. So maybe if you already have a tool you're using, you can pull that up and see what naturally integrates really easily. So,
if someone is interested in partnering with GetApp, getting their app on GetApp, how should they reach out to you guys, or how should they go about doing that? Or should your team in the chat respond to that if Shannon or Teo has a good response?
Yeah. We've got a catalog team that is, always researching new products. So again, I'm going to point you back to our website, to our contact information, so you can chat with them and they can review tools and get those up on the catalog.
Are there any? I found it really interesting, or a great tip about asking different providers about the data, like, do they own your data? Do you get your data once you leave? And are there any other really helpful tips like that startups can jot down right now while they're starting to get into this process and thinking about, starting to pay for a service? Are there any other questions you can think about that are helpful for startups to ask before they go with something?
Yeah, one thing. Go for it, Zach.
I was going to say, one thing to keep in mind before you even get there, consider trying this tool first. We kind of got to that with maybe the super user talk, but you can always audition a tool before you commit, and have a team that kind of runs your workflows through it, just to make sure it's going to fit. There's nothing worse than getting a tool that isn't quite fit for your purpose, and then now you have it. You've already let the old product go. So feel free to test them out first before you buy. That's one thing you can definitely do ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Amanda, you had one.
Yeah, something that was really helpful for me when I was implementing software is check on, so a lot of contracts have auto renew clauses in them. Mm-hmm. And so basically it's you have to specify 90 days or something in advance. Otherwise we'll automatically renew your contract, which is kind of a pain if you are interested in switching to a different platform. So I've always worked with our rep and gotten that removed so that it's not going to auto renew and they have to contact you for you to start that contract again. It just makes it a little bit easier to get out of your contract if you are interested in switching to a different tool.
That's
one more point too for smaller organizations. A lot of the software, I did some research a year or so ago looking at pricing models month to month versus annual pricing, and so a lot of the month-to-month pricing looks very attractive for a smaller company. And as you're growing, there hits a point where you're going to want to consider moving over to annual pricing. So keep an eye, if you go for month-to-month pricing, keep an eye on as your company grows, you need more seats or something. Keep an eye on which pricing structure makes more sense and switch over when you need to. I think that's one that people forget about, and they end up maybe for a couple of years overpaying for their product as well.
Great advice, and helpful in any contract you're about to go into, whether it's for your company or your cable bill. They will try to get you, that's for sure. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have. Thank you both so much. We really enjoyed all your research and the questions and getting engaged with you too.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, glad to be here today.